She won most talkative in high school, and she has been running her mouth ever since. Welcome to the Lisa Fisher Said podcast with your host, Lisa Fisher.
Okay, everybody, this is a combo guest in that passion for the homeless and a passion for cheese. Well, meats, animal-based, a carnivore. So, Kerry, tell me how you got where you are now and why this is your mission in life and who you're trying to help.
Sure. So 170 days ago, I found the carnivore diet and
Awesome.
completely changed my life forever. I'm down 100 pounds since my heaviest. I didn't lose all of that on carnivore, though. I lost most of it on carnivore. I did keto before that.
Yeah, which is a
On and
first
off.
cousin to carnivore.
Right.
It's
I
cutting
was
out the carbs and the crap.
Right. Yeah, I say keto's like white belt and carnivore's like brown belt, and then you have lion diet, which is a whole other thing. That's your
Then
black
I'm
belt.
not. Then I'm not a black belt because I have you tried the lion diet? Have you considered it?
On day 90, I interviewed my inspiration, the man that told me about carnivore diet, and he told me, Kerry, I just hit day 900 of doing lion diet. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can do this for 10 more days. So from day 90 to day 100, I was going to do lion diet, which is just beef, salt, and water. And I
Yeah.
did it. I felt amazing, and I continued to do it for 60 more days after that.
Really?
Yeah. Um,
Who's your inspiration then for carnivore?
he's a man named Dante Ferrigno, and he has a YouTube channel. It's called Ferrigno Freedom. And I'd done keto on and off for years, but I was in horrible shape. Well, just over 170 days ago, before I started carnivore diet, I had I was very much overweight, but I also had just crippling depression, anxiety, IBS. I had inflammation horribly in my elbows, in my back. And the worst part of it was that just had me desperate was I had inflammation in my right foot for 18 months. I went in and they thought, oh, you've got gout. And they gave me all these meds for gout.
Wow.
That didn't help. They upped the meds, they changed the meds. And finally, I saw 3 different foot specialists. And I'm not exaggerating. It felt like a fractured bone. Every time I'd step down on it, I was wincing, and I didn't do anything for like a year. I couldn't hardly walk around. It hurt so bad. And that got me desperate. And so I was doing research and trying to find things, and I found this YouTube video. It's this man Dante from Ferrigno Freedom. He had a YouTube channel, and he was very much overweight, and he had IBS, and he had a lot of the same issues I had, and he didn't look very healthy. And he said, I'm just starting this lion diet, which is just a more extreme version of carnivore, just eating animal products only, no vegetables, no fruit, nothing else. And I'm going to see if it helps me. He said, ultimately, I'm doing this for me and my family. And it really resonated with me. He just seemed like a really nice guy. But I was cynical, and I'm like, this is crazy. You can't just eat only meat. And I noticed his video was from 2 years prior. And I was with my wife, and I was like, there's no way this guy's still eating meat 2 years later. Let's fast forward and look at his most recent video. And so we did that, and I didn't even recognize the man. Complete transformation, lost all the weight, but even beyond the weight, you could see all of the other things. He had this smile, this glow, his whole demeanor and everything changed. And that was when I was like, I still thought carnivore was crazy, but I'm like, there is something to this. But in my head, I'm like, this Dante guy, he's an outlier. There's something weird with him or something going on. So I started doing more and more research, and I'm kind of obsessive that way. So I really went down a rabbit hole. I found Dr. Ken Berry,
Yeah.
and I watched probably 100 of his videos, and
He's fabulous.
He is, yeah. I was still cynical, and I'm like, what is this guy selling? Dr. Berry, in one video, he was talking about how bacon is good for you. I'm like, this guy's insane. What is he talking about? And he's doing some sort of angle. Then I came across a video. Now, I had so many ailments. I didn't even mention half of them. I also had sleep apnea for years. I had to put a CPAP machine on, strap this thing around my face just to get enough air, and I'd stop breathing hundreds of times throughout the night. But I never had type 2 diabetes. I think I was probably close. Dr. Berry did a video on type 2 diabetes, and I just happened to watch it, and then I was reading the comments. It had like 1 million views, and it was called Reversing Type 2 Diabetes. And almost every one of the comments, comment after comment, was, Dr. Berry, you changed my life. You saved my life.
Yeah.
10 years of going to my traditional doctor, and in 10 minutes this video has helped me reverse things. And they were listing like facts like my A1C was this, now it's this. I lost this many pounds. I was like headed for a mobility scooter and now I'm running around and jogging. And I was like, all these people can't be lying. There has to be something to this. And yeah, so I jumped in and decided to try carnivore. Here's what I did too, because people are like, I still can't wrap my brain around eating only meat, because that's all I've done. I've had nothing else. I haven't had one fruit, one vegetable in 170 days. It's only been animal products, beef, butter, bacon, eggs, and then for 60 days I did just beef and water. And I stopped doing that a little while ago. I can tell you more about that, but the way I wrapped my brain around it was this. I didn't say I'm going to eat meat only for 30 days. I said I'm going to do a simple elimination diet. I'm going to get rid of all of that other garbage for 30 days. The sugar, the seed oils, all the processed food, the food dyes. That was pretty much just eating meat only. But positioning it that way in my brain, I always tell people it's kind of a good way to do it, because who can't get on board with getting rid of all of that
Everyone. I
inflammatory
mean,
food?
if there's a food pyramid that we need to abide by, you just mentioned it. But as we know, there's no money in that. So the federal government won't get behind it. And it's really how we should be raising our kids, is getting
Hmm.
grain, those wheat, especially because we know it's poison now,
Yes.
and some other grains that bother people. But no one wants to say that. You've seen the meme that says, um, there's a box of cereal, there's Pop Tarts, there's a can of fruit, orange juice. It says, when you start eating a meat diet or an animal based diet, those people think that we're crazy, and that we're some outliers,
Mhm.
because they're the ones, they think, well, this is what you should be eating. You should have orange juice at breakfast. We're saying no. In fact, I'm an intermittent faster. I'm saying you shouldn't have breakfast.
Yes. Right. Your point about the children too, that's something that really gets to me. I've been very fortunate over the last 160 days. So I'm a YouTuber. I've been doing YouTube for like 8 years, but mostly about our homestead. I'm talking about our homestead on our channel. And on my day 30 of carnivore, I'm like, I'm going to just do one carnivore video to tell people about my story, because this is just amazing what's happening to me. So I mentioned a few of the things, being down 100 pounds, but honestly, if I was 200 pounds heavier than I am now, I would still be doing carnivore for all of the other off scale victories. Depression and anxiety is completely gone. I was on every
Unbelievable.
SSRI for years. Horrible, horrible depression. Um, my sleep apnea completely gone. And the crazy thing with the sleep apnea was it happened to me in the first couple days of doing carnivore diet. And it's not, people are like, oh, that you're exaggerating. If you go out and do the research, Dr. Jordan Peterson has been doing lion diet for over 5 years now. His daughter has as well. He's got a big testimonial he did on Joe Rogan, and that was one of the things he said. In the first week, I stopped snoring. And since I did my 30-day update video, I've done many more. I've been very fortunate. So I've actually had Dr. Ken Berry on my channel. I've had Dr. Chafee. I've had
Yeah.
Dr. Filippo Vadia is coming on in like a
Uh,
week, heart
he
surgeon.
he's fabulous.
Yeah, Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Hampton. So
I
I've
love
had
him.
all these guys on here, and I've
Yeah.
been learning so much. But the sleep thing is so huge. The sleep, I think sleep is one of the most important things. And I say this to people, and I tell people this, and they're just like, "Oh, I get 8 hours, I'm good." I think you can get 20 hours of sleep, and it doesn't matter unless you're getting that deep regenerative sleep. And on carnivore diet, the sleep has been worth the price of admission alone. I jump out of bed. I'm getting up earlier and earlier, and my energy is just going on forever. But more importantly, I got rid of my CPAP machine. And with it, a lot of people might not know this. With a CPAP machine, it'll actually tell you how many times you stop breathing throughout the night.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that. Oh,
yeah, I was doing it hundreds of times. And when I started doing carnivore, you could just see the numbers. They came down like right away, and it happens for everybody. And the sleep doctor that I went to, I went in and I did sleep studies, and he told me, "Listen, you're way overweight. You're gonna have to lose 80 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever, to get down there before you stop snoring." That was partially true, but what he didn't tell me was a lot of people, a big reason they snore isn't just because of their weight; it's inflammation. Inflammation,
oh,
and that
around the
inflammation.
trachea and some other things, just from being inflamed.
Yes, just through the airway. And Lisa, this is a crazy thing. So I stopped snoring in the first couple of days. Dr. Jordan Peterson did a week. I've heard many other people say this. My wife started carnivore diet and she was snoring horribly. And this is kind of creepy, but I have her permission. I actually showed this on my YouTube channel. I recorded her snoring at her worst. I'm like, just look, I just want you to know you're doing
Yeah.
this. And I believe this is simply from inflammation in the foods you're eating. So she started doing
Wow.
carnivore and I recorded her. And the first night I recorded her, she was snoring really loud and hard. The second night, it was about 80%. The third night, 50%. The fourth night, 20%. Fifth night, no more snoring at all. She was sleeping so peacefully
In 4 nights.
in 4 nights. Yep. It was just inflammation. And for years, I snored for years on a CPAP machine. She snored for years. When you're snoring like that, your body's not regenerating. Your immune system's weak. It affects everything, your hormones, your whole day's shot. And so many sort of downstream effects from having that bad sleep. But that was one message I've been trying to tell people. If you're snoring, just try an elimination diet. Try it for a week and see what happens. A lot of
And
people
see what
within a
happens.
week could go away.
It's paradoxical about the whole meat thing. I have a client right now, a type 2 diabetic, who has gout. And of course, gout used to be the rich man's disease like 100 years ago, right? Now we know, and they thought a high meat diet contributed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told my client yesterday, in fact, I said, get off all oxalates, remove them. And I said, replace it with meat. And he's saying, but my wife says I have to have salads. And I went, no, you don't. Because he said, but with the gout, I thought it was from, this excessive, rich man's diet of beef tenderloin and pork and whatever. I went, no, it's the opposite. So it's so interesting that you're saying that it actually does eliminate gout. It doesn't perpetuate it. It eliminates it. Why is that? Do you know the science behind that? Because that's really interesting. I don't know enough about gout. I know there's a uric acid component, and those people are usually type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic. Drop Acid is a book by David Perlmutter that is really fascinating about this concept. But do you think you can explain that, how meat actually helps eliminate gout?
Yeah, I probably can't explain it as well as some others. Like, not to send people somewhere else, but Dr. Barry has an amazing
Yeah.
video about gout that gets
Okay.
into the science more. I think it's in large part inflammation. That's the
Oh,
other thing is inflammation is everyone out in the world should be
um,
worried about inflammation. When people see me and my results, they're like, oh, that's great, you lost 100 pounds, but you're probably going to have a heart attack. And
well,
meanwhile, their body's full of inflammation. And if you have poor metabolic health and you're eating sugar and carbs and you're pre-diabetic and your body's inflamed, you're 6 times more likely to have heart disease than if you have like a slightly higher LDL number. Everybody
I,
only talks about LDL and no one thinks about it. That's science and facts with the
Ken
poor metabolic
Berry's
health.
videos about cholesterol are the most telling. I send those out more than anything else. I send out to my naysayers,
Yeah,
because the people say, but my cholesterol, and I go, don't, just zip it.
right.
Because unless you're looking at your inflammatory markers, so let's talk. I don't care about your cholesterol, because as Ken Berry says, you want a healthy cholesterol so your sex hormones communicate, so
Yes.
you have vitamin D. The things that keep me alive are
Yes.
the fact that my total cholesterol is 250, my ratio isn't great, but my fasting insulin's the lowest my provider's ever seen. My C-reactive protein is 0.17. It needs to be under 1. Now, some people say it needs to be under 2. No, I'm saying it needs to be under 1. I say your fasting insulin needs to be under, 4 or 5. So tell me about some of those are the markers that we need to look at to see if you're at risk for having cardiovascular disease. And Dr. Ovadia will explain all that to you too, because he talks about it. I mean, he really knows the science.
Yeah.
So tell me what some of your markers were that have been reversed.
Yeah. Well, here's the one thing I feel a million times better. I'm
Right.
about to
That's what's
hit,
important.
yeah, I'm about to hit 6 months. And some of the advice I've heard is when you start carnivore, you should give it about 6 months because your hormones will fluctuate and everything will
Yeah.
change. I even heard someone say, like, if you go in at 4 months and get all of these tests done, and then you go in a day later and a day later and a day later, you're going to get drastically different results until you're kind of in
Wow.
homeostasis. So
Okay.
I haven't had extensive testing done yet, but just anecdotally from myself, knowing my body for so many years, just everything feels better. The sleep is better. The weight is down. The mood is better. The inflammation in my foot and elbows is gone. One of the biggest things that changed too is the brain fog. Oh, that was something. I knew I had a little bit of brain fog before, but as the people have been saying, when you're in the fog, you can't see the fog. I didn't
No.
know how deep
Mm-mm.
in the fog I was before. I'm thinking so much more clearly now. Now that I'm out of that fog. Uh,
Okay,
yeah.
let's talk about one influence. Peterson, obviously, Jordan Peterson, Michaela Peterson. Fascinating what they've seen, and it goes with the science because okay, I'll give it. You and I may have anecdotal responses, right? You know, because I'm not in the lab. I'm not a rat in a lab. But Dr. Chris Palmer in his book, Brain Energy, at least talks about the keto diet and how depression is cured by eliminating, and it's eliminating the crap.
Right.
And so we're talking about processed foods, we're talking about alcohol, I'm sorry, we're talking about sugar, we're talking about a lot of times conventional dairy. It just depends, how sensitive you are to things. So the fact that you said, Kerry, you cured your depression with carnivore, expound on that. That is fascinating.
Yeah, that's been life changing for sure. I've had horrible depression, crippling anxiety for years. I never would have done a call like this with you. I'd have a lunch break on my job. I'd have phone calls with clients in the afternoon, and I would literally be on my lunch break, like, if I just swerve off and just lightly crash into this tree, I can get out of doing this phone call because the anxiety was just so bad.
Oh,
I was on every antidepressant SSRI for years, and those were horrible. I was at one point where at our old house, we had this little workshop attached to our garage. There's no windows in it. I used to just go sit down there for hours because I couldn't be near my family. I was just such a miserable, depressed person.
and isn't
And-
that interesting how you went to a dark room when sunlight is so. In fact, before this interview, we're recording at 7 a.m., and it's a time of year where our sunrise is getting a little later. But before I even saw you, because I'm in a dark room, I had to get sunlight in my eyes to signal my circadian rhythm to make my
yes,
morning cortisol. But isn't that interesting? In the depressed state, you avoided sunlight still. And I know
right.
you're avoiding your family, but in a dark room, that's the last place I want to be now. And I'm sure you are this. I mean, you're in a glass room right now.
Right. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's one of the things I've learned on carnivore is myself personally, so many things I did were completely the opposite of what I should have been doing. And so many things I was told before were the completely opposite of what I should have been doing. But yeah, it was such a dark place. If people haven't experienced depression, I always encourage people to be more kind to people that are depressed, because
Mm,
a lot of times people be like, well, you just got to go out and get a walk, to take a walk, you'll feel
mm,
better,
mm-mm,
walk it off kind of
mm-mm,
thing. And
mm-mm,
you can get to such a dark place where you can't stand up and you can't do
mm-mm.
anything.
It's
And
debilitating.
yeah, so I sought help for it. I was at a point where I was suicidally depressed.
Mm.
um, I got medication. I went to a doctor and they're like, well, we know you're suicidally depressed, we can give you this medicine, but this one might work, this one might not, and it's going to take 3 months before it's even going to take
Wait,
effect.
and some of them even have suicide ideation as a side effect.
Right, yeah,
It,
it's
I,
insane.
I mean, what a
It's
slap
insane.
in the face to somebody
Hmm.
who's fighting for their life when really a doctor, you can save money by getting off the medicine. Of course, this is not medical advice. We're just saying you seek the
Right.
advice of your healthcare provider, but and incorporating meat into your diet. I mean, it sounds so simple that it's almost laughable.
Yeah, and in retrospect, it's crazy to me because that was the solution. So they put me on the SSRI. I did it for 3 months. Did like nothing. They're like, well, let's up the dosage. Did like
Well,
nothing. Up the
you
dosage,
gained weight.
and I gained weight. Yes, and it by around like month 6, I wasn't necessarily suicidally depressed anymore, but I was completely emotionless, just like a zombie, just
Right.
barely
That's
going
what
through
I've
life.
heard.
No ups, no downs, nothing. Gaining weight and just didn't really care about anything. Um, yeah, so I did all of that for years. Then I found the keto diet years and years ago, and that was the only thing that put a little dent in and slightly helped.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love keto. I had good success on keto, but for me, I still had a lot of the issues and ailments, and it probably because of the way I was doing keto. I joke around with people now. I'm like, when I started, because I did keto even 10 years ago, I was like, when I started keto, we didn't have all these fancy keto snacks and keto ice cream and all this stuff that you guys have. But now in retrospect, I'm like, those things are horrible for you.
No.
Those messed me up so bad. You go to Costco or whatever, like, oh, it's keto friendly. Let's throw it in the
Okay.
cars.
We need to break this down for people. It's the seed oils that they use for binders
Yes.
typically. Now, I don't, I guess a Lara bar would be, I'm trying to think of some things maybe that have no seed oils that are just raw ingredients. There just aren't too many, but people buyer beware, caveat
Yeah.
emptor, buyer beware, and know that the seed oils are as corruptive to
Mm-hmm.
your body than anything. When's the last time you think you had a seed oil?
171 days ago. Haven't had any
So,
on carnivore.
wow. So you're not eating out at restaurants then?
Oh, I guess I should be careful. Yeah, I
It's
do
hard.
go out to restaurants and I try to be so careful, but I'm
Me
sure
too.
I've probably had some there. I
Me
tell
too.
people when I go to a restaurant, like, I'm allergic to seed
too.
oils. I'm allergic. Give me a piece
Yeah.
of meat on fire, nothing, no
Yeah.
seasonings or anything. But yeah, they still slip through sometimes. I've had a couple times where I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. It must have been that steak I
You
ate at a restaurant.
you could tell the difference.
Yeah, for sure. Quickly too.
With what I saw an interview or a meet. No, it was a little post somebody had the other day. They were asking all these carnivores, what's your drug of choice? What's your favorite? And some people are like prime rib, beef tenderloin, New York strip, ground beef. My husband and I are on a beef brisket.
Oh,
So you can get ground beef brisket burgers. So the fat is really high.
yeah.
It sears really well in an iron skillet. It almost gets crunchy. Like my mouth's watering
Mine
because the
too.
fat will crisp up. And we even put butter on it.
Mm.
And it is, I would say, I was always Anthony Chafee's the one I think who got me really looking at the ribeyes, or Dr. Kiltz maybe. Dr. Kiltz is a big ribeye man, so I did ribeye for a long time. I always thought I was beef tenderloin, but now, y'all, the cheaper the meat. Now, there's a cheapest meat is just ground beef, but if you can find ground brisket burgers, have you tried that yet?
No, but I want to now. My mouth is watering. I haven't
Yeah,
tried that one. I've had
and
brisket, but not in a burger.
yeah, ground brisket burger. So think about the fat content.
Oh,
The risk sometimes in a ground beef, sometimes people, well, I don't know if we feel that way. We used to say to stay away from it, I guess because we were afraid of the fat in it, but now we want more fat.
yes.
That's the other thing. We're marginalized when we grow. If you go to a conventional, now I do have farmers who help, that I can buy from now. But if I'm in a place where I have to, let's say, buy from Walmart, everything will say 90%, 90-10,
Yeah.
85-15. I'm like, no, girl,
Right.
I'd love 50-50, but you
Swap
can't
it.
find it. Yeah,
Right.
right. So what's the fattiest ground beef that you can find?
I think 70-30
So,
maybe.
yeah, I think Anthony Chafee or someone said you can now you can even ask your butcher, can you add more fat to that?
Yeah. Fat is
And
so important. I It's funny you mentioned Dr. Kiltz. I was very fortunate. He came on my channel a couple of weeks ago and he
oh,
said,
he's so
Kerry,
dear.
he's amazing. He
He's
said,
so
Kerry, it should be called fativore, not carnivore. He's like, if you just ate, but it was a good
yeah.
point because I didn't think about this. He's like, if you just ate strict meat with no fat in it, you would end up like dying. You wouldn't make it. It's the
Oh,
fat that's doing it for
yeah.
you. I was like, wow, I never really thought about it that way. I feel so much better too when I'm getting fat. And the
Well,
cholesterol you mentioned earlier,
yeah.
I'm not a doctor either, of course, but I feel like there's a deficiency in people having cholesterol over the whole world. People need more of it. They're doing the opposite. It's been demonized so long because a lot of people have said to me, Kerry, this is great. You lost all this weight. You overcame depression, anxiety. You're feeling better. But that's just because you got rid of sugar and seed oils. And I don't think that's true. I think that's a good part of it.
It
Those seed
is.
oils are horrible. But the other part of it is meat's been demonized for so long. I also have a heart condition. And I was always avoiding it because I've been told my whole life it's going to clog your arteries. You're going to have a heart attack.
Yes.
Everyone avoids it. And I think that's why we have a lot of men in the world. They're getting testosterone replacement therapy. Sadly, a lot of
Absolutely.
young teenage girls. I have triplets plus one. I have 4 girls. So younger.
You have
Yeah.
triplets? Oh my
Yeah.
God. How old are
So
they? I'm sorry. I love babies. How old are they?
they're 16 now, and my oldest just turned 18. Yeah, they're all driving now, and a
And
couple of
driving
them
you
are
crazy.
driving me crazy. Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple of them are carnivores now too, which is a whole other story. But yeah, young girls are getting hitting puberty earlier and earlier.
I
Everyone's
know.
wondering why. It's cholesterol is when you get fatty meat, your cholesterol goes up. It balances your hormones, and I think that's what helped with my depression, anxiety, sleep. It's like everything. So I think a lot of people are just deficient in that because it's been demonized for so long. We've been told to do the opposite for so many years.
Well, let's talk about your girls just a minute because a younger generation is obviously TikTok influence, and the Kardashians tell people to eat crickets and plant burgers, and we're
Mm,
saying you want to wreck your hormones, you want to never have children, you
right.
know, you want to compromise your ovarian integrity. Go ahead, eat a cricket,
Yeah.
But do you want to be fertile someday? Do you want to avoid acne? All these young girls carry with acne, and it's the crap they're eating.
Yes.
It's the drive-through foods, obviously. It's the packaged foods, but it's also their avoidance of, because meat has been demonized.
Yeah.
And now, if you noticed, there is now a push because alpha gal is the tick-borne disease that gives somebody an anaphylactic like reaction to meat for a period of time. It can be 10 years and you can outgrow it. It is life threatening. Well, they're noticing that people who took a certain jab in their arm,
Mm,
it may there's some connection with alpha gal, and there's an uptick, pardon the pun, in alpha gal, but now they're saying, oh, but it's the meat we have to stay away from.
yeah. It's
We're
always the
like,
meat.
no, we're like, maybe it was that thing you put in your arm.
Right.
But
You're right.
yeah, so it's so important that your girls, they need their own YouTube channel, they need their own social media, because we need somebody to raise the banner high to eat meat at a young age so that
Yes.
girls aren't. I'm telling you, there's an epidemic of cystic acne, and that is absolutely, it's everything from insulin resistance. It is something with an imbalance of their hormones and their
Hmm.
ovaries and all the things. But we need them to be big mouths about it.
I love what you're gonna love this, Lisa. So you're gonna love part of this. One of the triplets, Emma, she was very sadly and horrible parenting on my part. She's vegetarian and then vegan for many years, and I
I,
tried
I
to.
have one here. I
Okay,
mean, I
I'm
got
like,
it.
this is a phase. She's not gonna do it, and this kid just kept doing it, and her health declined,
Yeah.
declined. She was acne, weakness. Like she come home from school and at like 5:30, she'd be. I'm like, why are you laying in bed at 5:30? Just exhaustion,
Uh huh.
fatigue, all the things you're
Uh huh.
describing. Horrible acne. She
Uh
went
huh.
from being a vegan 5 years. She did this for five. I feel so horrible that I allowed this to continue going on for so long. I'm like, she's gonna come around. She's gonna come around. I couldn't stop her.
No, you can't stop them.
Yeah. She did it for 5 years. She saw me doing carnivore, and around like day 40 or 50, she tapped out and she did a full, complete reversal. And she's like, she wasn't even like, I'm going to do keto, which is what I suggest. I'm like, you can't jump in from
Yeah.
doing vegan to carnivore. You should do keto, bone broth, like ease into it. She's like,
Yeah.
okay, Dad, I will. And she didn't listen to me again. She jumped
That
100% into carnivore. And it's been amazing. Complete reversal. She's a full-on carnivore now for geez, well over 100 days with me. We eat steaks together. Acne's cleared up. Face is cleared up. And to your point, which I love, I absolutely love, she's starting a YouTube channel. She's been on
good.
many of my YouTube videos and live
She
streams.
needs to.
Huge demand. Everyone's like, we want to hear more from Emma. My daughter's a teenager. She's suffering. They're eating all this junk food. They have the acne. They're
Yes.
tired. One other thing, real quick, because this is just the most amazing thing that happened on Carnivore. Part of the reason I started was for my daughter Lily. She's not the triplet. She's the 18-year-old. She had open.
Mhm.
It's the singlet. Yeah, she had open heart surgery at 13, and
Is
thankfully
that right?
that all went well. Yes, but
Mm.
after the open heart surgery, she had this horrible skin condition. It's called HS. That's the abbreviation for it. I can't pronounce the whole thing. Hydra something.
Hydroburgess or something.
Exactly. Something
I've
like that.
seen it. It's like a rash like I've never seen. They
Yes.
welt up and
Um,
it
so when
and
she
it's
had her,
painful.
very painful. And when she had her open heart surgery, this was the most horrible time of her life. The doctors are like, this is going to take 8 hours. Me and mom were downstairs. They gave us a phone. We're going to call you when it's done in 8 hours. We're sitting there. Well, 2 hours into it, they called us and we're like, oh my goodness, what happened? We can't
Ugh.
do the surgery. I'm like, why can't you do the surgery? The HS was right where they needed to cut her chest open.
Oh.
So they had to send her home. And since that time, she saw 5 different dermatologists, thousands of dollars. We took her to the best specialists. They tried creams, injections, pills. The last one said to us, we can give her this injection, but it's going to completely shut down her immune system. This was after 4 years. And just like you said, Lisa, horribly painful. She came to me and her mom crying once, and she's like, I just want to die. This hurts so bad, and nobody's helping me. I felt so helpless. And so when I started doing carnivore, I said to Lily, I'm like, you're 18 years old now. I'm not telling you just go eat meat, but Lily, I really think what you're eating is causing this. She also had horrible acne and she was gaining some weight and things like that. She started carnivore with me. On day 8 of her doing carnivore, half of the HS on her back was gone. By day 30, after 5 years, by day 30, all of the HS is completely gone, 100% gone. Acne on her face is gone. She walked out of her bedroom one day around day 20 of her doing carnivore. My wife and I looked at each other and were like, who is that kid? She wasn't recognizable. Her face was glowing. Acne was clearing up. Weight was going down.
Wow.
Mood was better. Her mood was so much better. And it's like, this is what it is. This is what a natural 18-year-old girl should look like.
It should look like.
They shouldn't have acne and all of these things. That's not natural. That's not the natural human state. It's simply from the food that she was eating. So yeah, I get fired up with the kids. It's so sad. This next generation of kids, none of them are going to know what it feels like to be a natural, normal human being. Their body's just filled with inflammation. And the fact that we get them hooked on sugar from a young age, I really hope that maybe years from now, we're going to look back and be like, what were we doing getting kids addicted to sugar?
Not just sugar, because I do have young clients as a health coach, birth control pills. They start them younger and younger. That's your body is not lacking a synthetic hormone. I can tell you that. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I know that. And you can mitigate your hormones, again, getting sunlight in the morning, grounding outside, eating real foods. So have you talked to Brian Sanders, the Food Lies guy?
I haven't.
Do you know him?
No.
Oh, Kerry. He's amazing. He is actually a documentarian, and he is doing crowd funding for Food Lies. And so I interviewed him years ago, and then again about a year ago. And he's really the first person that told me about carnivore. And I was going, wait, what? And I said, so you don't even eat chicken? And he went, no. And so once you start understanding, what now chickens of today, the chickens of 100 years ago, or in certain parts of the world may be different. Same with the pigs. Eat different things. You need to look him up, though. You'd really appreciate everything you're saying, he says. But was it hard for you because we were taught for so long we need to eat chicken because it was low in fat, and to stay away from bacon? So now you eat bacon, but do you eat chicken at all?
Very rarely, but I've heard from Dr. Jordan Peterson, some others, if you stick with the ruminant animals like beef, animals that have multiple chambers, by the time they process all of their food, you're just getting the good stuff. And with chicken, if the chicken's fed grains or some weird things that it might have an autoimmune disorder too.
That's what we're afraid of, right? It's what the chickens eat.
Right. So I do from time to time, but I mostly avoid it. But when I did lion, of course I didn't. I just had beef. But from time to time, I'll do chicken. But I feel so much better when I get fatty pieces of steak. So
and the truth is, chicken's not good. Now that we get the good stuff, my gosh, guys, I ate chicken breast for so long, dried out, flavorless. Try to put it in a casserole, but I don't eat casseroles anymore. So I don't eat cream of chicken soup. But that's the only way we could eat it. So I will say, if you can find a chicken thigh with the skin on, and Trader Joe's has it, and you can fry that in avocado oil, it would be. I'm doing that this week. I'm trying it just for because I was having some palate fatigue. Have you
Right.
had that yet?
I haven't, but I have heard others that have.
I just needed in fact, I was at a restaurant and I typically order, let me have your hamburger, your steak. I had chicken wings and I didn't even know how to eat them. They are so messy. I'm
Hmm.
just telling you. Like the grease and the sauce is to your nose, your chin. It is not a pretty look, but I needed it. I wanted it because I've had a little palate fatigue. So, somebody had warned me that happens. I was like, oh, it totally has happened to me. But I've been doing this now. I listened to Paul Saladino's book in July of 2022. He doesn't yell at you when he reads his book. He yells at you in his social media posts,
Right.
but in his book, he had a sweet voice. Um, and that's when I was like, and I was doing it to mitigate so that was it. And not that you care, but I'm just saying for everyone to see that we all have different reasons we come to the meat trough table.
Right.
I was trying to mitigate my vitiligo, and I heard
Yeah.
Joe Rogan talk about it, and it has repigmented a little bit. And it's just a skin condition. It's completely cosmetic. There's no pain, I mean, like what your daughter suffers and other people are suffering. I'm not suffering. It's just cosmetic. But I did do it for that reason. And I kind of thought in the beginning, oh, after I repigment my skin, I don't know. I guess I'd go back to eating a salad. I mean, I'm so glad I don't have to eat a salad again.
Yeah.
Um, but now that I'm here, I'm going, why would I go back to a salad? Why would I go to Brussels sprouts make me toot? I mean,
Yes.
all those especially cruciferous things they bloat you so much.
Hmm.
Remember in the kale, because kale obviously has this really good public relations, team. But 10 years ago when we were all eating kale, and you may not have done it, we were taking kale and chopping it up and then putting it in the oven, and it almost tasted like popcorn. Hey, did you ever
Mm.
try that?
I didn't do that one, no, but I did have a lot of kale, spinach stuff.
Your stomach would distend
Mm.
this big because your body is not prepared. I mean, I've said this. It's not the farting cows, people. It is the farting people. Okay,
Right.
that is hurting the ozone layer. And you had touched my stomach. I'm sorry that I have to discuss this with you, but I want people to know that
Hmm.
should have told me that wasn't good for me. But oh
Right.
no, the kale people said, you got to eat kale. You got to
Yeah.
put it in your smoothie. You have to have it with lunch. You have to have a kale wrap for dinner. And I believed all that. And I was fatter than I've ever, I was, overweight or insulin resistant about 15 pounds ago. And I felt bad. So
Hmm.
I guess that's another thing, Carrie, you're explaining to people, listen to your body.
Yes.
If your daughter's HP, this is it HP or HS? It's
HS.
hydro HS. I have a friend with it. If your daughter's body has eliminated HS simply by removing certain foods and introducing others, wouldn't you say that that's probably better for you, despite what some health official tells you?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'd say the same thing. Listen to your body and just, you have to use your own two eyes with some of this stuff because in retrospect, some of it's so clear. With Lily, I feel foolish. It's like, people eat peanuts that are allergic to them. They have an allergic reaction. She was having a reaction to the food she was eating. It's really
Right,
not
same
that
thing.
complicated in retrospect.
Right.
And they're throwing all these pills and injections at her. The thing that really fires me up, though, is not one of those 5 dermatologists mentioned nutrition. Now, if I take my dog to the vet, they're going to say, "What did you feed the dog?" But I take my daughter to the
Right.
doctor, no questions, no
I'm
questions
going to
about
start going
nutrition.
to the vet.
Right,
Because you know what? I want ivermectin and I want fenbendazole.
right.
I've been on a deep dive. Have you done the deep dive into ivermectin, what it does, how good it is? Because we all have parasites, aren't
I was probably one of the first people taking it before the big pandemic stuff was going around. And
really? Because you were doing it to mitigate parasites?
well, I heard about it helping if you end up getting COVID stuff.
The thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I had the thing again this weekend. I didn't take anything for it. It was it was a really bad headache, but it was a weekend, so it worked out fine for me. But you do you, people. I don't care.
Right.
But I have friends that take it prophylactically to keep their health in fine tune, because we can't. It's very common that most of us have some type of parasite. And fenbendazole, which Dr. Thomas Lodi, Lodi, also recommends for cancer treatment. Get it at you get it at the co-op or where your vet shops. So again, I'm going to start going to the veterinarian for my health care. My daughters are redhead, and they are more sensitive to this planet, and her daughters are redhead. And so my granddaughter has red hair and has not psoriasis, but eczema, which I've said isn't diet connected to this. She goes, I asked the dermatologist, and the dermatologist said these words: diet has nothing to do with her eczema.
Oh.
Night, everybody. I'm done.
Yeah.
I just go, really? Because if and I know, medical doctors often take this many hours and egg 0 in nutrition. Some take a 3-hour course. Well, I've had more than that as a graduate of the Institute of Integrated Nutrition, New York, as a health coach.
Right.
I have more than that. You have more than that just by doing an internet, because you said you do a deep dive into things.
Right.
You know more about nutrition.
I have this container. I don't have it here, but I have this container of all my pills from the last 10 years. It's overflowing. And every one of those pills, no joke, nutrition. And not one of the doctors said anything about it. Was just the food I was eating. My IBS, nutrition. Acid reflux, nutrition. Inflammation, elbows, pain, arthritis, gout, all the pills I took for that, it was nutrition. Even the antidepressants they gave me, didn't need any of them. It was just nutrition. That's one of the biggest things that it really gets me fired up, because I suffered for so long, and then it compounds, and then you're taking these different meds. How are they reacting with each other? Nobody knows. They're like, oh, it's just going to be fine. But I want, I did the 30-day carnivore update video. I've done a bunch of videos since then, and I'm doing a carnivore diet documentary because I want to get the word out about this.
Good.
I want people that are hopeless like I was to know that this is an option. There's so many people out there that if I would have known about this 20 years ago or 10 years ago when I had that horrible depression, it would have been life-changing for me. And so that was why I interviewed Dr. Barry and Baker and all those guys, and they're all going to be in the documentary. Each one of them I had on the channel is like, I don't want to put you on the spot, Dr. Barry, but I'm doing this carnivore diet documentary. Would you be involved?
Love to. Yeah.
He said 100%. So I have all their buy-in. But in the documentary, the whole goal is not to say you need to eat meat, you need to do this. It's just going to say, here's examples of real people that have obesity, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune disorders, depression, anxiety, women's health issues, aging. Doing carnivore, we're going to follow them for 1 year. We're going to see what happens, and we're going to unbiased. If they fail, we're going to show you. We're going to give you the truth, and we're going to show you these examples, and you can see what happens. But if people take nothing else away from that, my end goal is I hope they take away that 99% of the issues that people have and they go to the doctor for, it's just nutrition, and the doctors never tell you that. And I didn't know that. I just kept going and going. And look at your nutrition before you go to the doctor. Really think about it.
I always say they can't win the trip to Cabo if you're eliminating things with nutrition. They can only win the trip to Cabo if they write this many blank prescriptions. So I've said that so many times on my podcast. I know I infuriate people, but I mean, follow the money. I mean, for the last 3 years, follow the money. Okay, you said you stopped the lion diet. So you did it for a certain time. What was it, boredom?
No, it was necessity. So here's the craziest thing that's happened to me on carnivores. All these people keep coming to me for my 30-day video, and carnivores changed my life forever. I'm overcome depression, anxiety, and it started out as just like this passion. I'm going to do a couple more YouTube videos. I've probably done 100 carnivore videos now, and they've been really taking off. And it turned from a passion to more like, this is a responsibility. I need to tell more people about this. Well, long story short, I got this big comment on one of my videos. It was an essay, and the man said, my name is Bill. I'm from Alaska. I'm 700 pounds. I haven't left my house in 4 years. And it brought a tear to my eye. Like he poured his whole heart out in this comment to me on YouTube. And he did keto a couple of years ago. He had good success, but then he tried to, as his friends and loved ones told him, just go back to eating in moderation. Well, you can't eat in moderation. If you have a little bit of sugar, it's a drug. You're going to get hooked. And he gained all the weight back. He left me this comment on YouTube. I replied back immediately. I was like, I want to help you. We're doing this documentary. You don't have to be in it. You can privately call me. Because he said, I want to do carnivore, but meat in Alaska is incredibly expensive. I don't have an income. I'm on a fixed income, stuck in his house for 4 years.
He's like, work.
He couldn't work, but he's like, I want to work. He said, I want to do a YouTube channel and I want to share the story with people. So anyways, I commented back immediately. He never answered. A week went by. I commented back, never answered. So I put a video up on my YouTube channel. I titled it 700-pound Bill from Alaska. I want to help you. I put it up there. I told kind of the story. Well, he saw the video. He responded back to me and he said he wants to do carnivore. I said, I will help you. I got a big following on YouTube now. I'll send all my people to you if you start a YouTube channel. I was like, we'll get you your meat. So that doesn't have to be a barrier to entry. We did that. And he set up a GoFundMe and he's like, I want to just raise $1,200 so I can get like a portion of cow to last me just to start carnivore.
Okay.
The carnivore community is amazing. We did that GoFundMe, $17,000 in a couple days. Then that was cool, but it's like that money's ends. Like that's not going to be forever, Bill. You need an ongoing income. So he did his first YouTube video. I did a video. I shouted him out. I'm like, everybody stop watching my channel. Go watch Bill's channel. And he went from 0 subscribers to, I think he has 13,000 now.
Okay, what's his name so we can follow him?
Yes, please. It's Bill Nott, Nott.
Okay.
And he is amazing. But this is a crazy part, Lisa. So I'm like, we're doing this documentary. I said, Bill, there's no pressure. You don't have to do this. He came to me and he said, I want to be accountable. I want to be in your documentary if you'll film me. And so we've been doing crowdfunding to pay for this. I've taken thousands of dollars out of my pocket. I'm not making a penny off this documentary. I don't want to make a penny. I think that's the reason why a lot of things are screwed up in the world right now. So it's just a passion project. But Bill said, I want to be in the documentary. So we did this 10-hour live stream and we raised funds so that I could go out and film him. So my daughter, Emma, the former vegan turned carnivore, her and me went to Alaska. This was just a couple of weeks ago. I didn't even know the guy 3 weeks before. We flew to Alaska to film him for this thing. And he's my new best friend now. He's the most amazing guy. And awesome. We filmed him and he's 700 pounds. He's prisoner in his house for 4 years, but actually he's a prisoner in his bed. He can't even get up out of the bed other than to go to the bathroom, which is just this huge ordeal. But he's been on carnivore now. He just hit day 40. I talk to him every single day. He just hit day 40. Thriving. He has a long way to go at 700 pounds, but as we were saying before, inflammation. He's like, Kerry, for the first time, my mood is brighter. For the first time, I have hope. And for the first time, he has to make this trip to the bathroom, it's horrible for him every day. He can barely do it. He's like ready to fall over. He's carrying an extra 500 pounds. I don't even know how it's physically possible, but he's like, either. When he would get done, he'd sit on the edge of the bed and just in agony, his back hurting, his knees hurting. He's like, Kerry, I sat on the edge of the bed for 2 hours, no pain. He's like, why is that, Kerry? I'm like, Bill, inflammation. Your inflammation's going away. So he's
how much has he lost in 40 pounds? And I know that's probably a little precipitous to ask, but what do you think?
Oh, in the 40 days, I think So he has a traveling nurse coming in next week to weigh him. He's so big, he couldn't weigh himself. So he's not sure, but I think he said on the last video, it's probably at least 40 or 50 pounds. Yeah. When you're that heavy, a lot of it's water weight when you first start, but he's noticing it, his legs, a lot of his weight is in his legs. And he's like, when he would go to the bathroom, they'd rub together and that would be painful by itself. And he's like, they're not, the inflammation's gone down so much that he's not feeling that much anymore.
Then because you're a very slim guy, how tall are you and what did you weigh and what do you weigh now if you tell people?
Sure. I'm 5'10", and at my heaviest, this was at a doctor's appointment. I actually have it on record, 262. Wow. My goal weight was to get down to 162. And that happened a couple weeks ago, right before I went to Alaska. And the lion diet really helped on that because I did good on keto, but I still had inflammation, depression, those issues. Depression was down, but I still had some of it. I have none of it on carnivore. I have no anxiety. I have fear for nothing. I did a video the other day and I'm like, I'm not bragging. I just want people to know, like, you deserve to feel this way where you don't have depression, anxiety. Your mood is great. I have a default smile on my face. Before, it used to be tension in my jaw. I used to grit my teeth and grind my teeth at night. So, but yeah, I feel so much better. But yeah, I'm down 100 pounds. When I did Lion, I stalled for a little bit for a while. Getting down to the 162 was pretty hard. But when I started doing Lion, that stall just right away. So there's something to it. Now that I'm down to 162, I have to eat more though. I'm so much more hungry. It makes sense. I
Yeah,
have
sure.
less body fat. I was burning that
Right.
body fat for fuel
And you're
before.
very efficient in the way you eat. Now, I never really asked the carnivores, but I know Robert Kiltz is and others. But is there some intermittent fasting involved in that? I mean, I wouldn't think you're up because you still, even though your insulin wouldn't spike. I mean, I guess you wouldn't have to do that, but is there some time restricted eating in that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's huge. When I was doing Lion, that was one of the reasons I liked it. I would eat once a day, about a pound
Yeah,
and a half of steak, and that was it. I'd go 23 hours without eating. When I was
yeah,
doing Carnivore, I would usually eat twice a day and then fast the rest of the time. As you know, there's so many benefits to fasting, and one of
yeah,
the big things,
yeah.
people will come to me and they'll be like, "What about all the loose skin?" Well, I have a lot of loose skin on my stomach. I don't really care. That's the least of my worries. But when you fast like that, it creates autophagy, and that's one
Hmm.
thing that can help tighten your skin up. It doesn't happen overnight, of course, but
Yeah,
I
it's
feel better
magical.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
feel great
magical
when
for
I'm
sure.
fasting.
Now, so one of my listeners, Susan there, and I think she's in New York, said you got to find this guy. But actually, your account is Homestead How, and you help the homeless. So, we've been talking 50 minutes and hadn't even talked about your other passions. So tell me about that.
Well, yeah, it's funny you say the homeless. So, well, Homestead How was mostly homesteading. Like we have a small farm here. We have chickens and goats. We actually
Good.
have done a couple of videos with the homeless where actually it was at the end of the whole pandemic stuff. I smoked up a whole bunch of ribs and we gave them out to the
Awesome.
homeless for free. So we've done
Awesome.
some of that. But yeah, I've mostly done homesteading videos. We had farm fresh eggs and chickens and we built goats,
Great.
and that's what I did videos on for years. But now it's mostly carnivore content because I think it's such an important message.
Now, Dr. Robert Kiltz does talk about Kiltz's ice cream that I haven't done yet. Have you had it? Have you made it?
A lot of my carnivore friends have. I haven't tried that yet. No, but I'd like to.
Because he's the one that started me on my mantra of beef, butter, bacon, and eggs.
Yes. Oh, I do
Um,
that.
yeah, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. Because it's funny when I go to the grocery store, where I go, our fresh market. I have some. We now have some pasture raised, cattle that has its freestanding store. But before that, if I went to like fresh market and all the guys back there in their white coats with all the blood on it, because they're butchers, and they ask me, what do you need, ma'am? And I go, the fattiest meat you have. I want, because I make my own bone broth, obviously. I want your bone marrow and all that. And they'll go, well, what do you eat? Because my husband looks like, a former NFL player, a former, college athlete. He's very, very fit. Um, and I said, well, we don't eat salads. And I said, we eat beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. I mean, all the men are coming up going, can I come live with you? My wife makes me eat green beans. And I go,
Right. Hey,
I
kale.
don't make you eat any of that at our house, right? Come on
Right.
over. So I always
What?
say it's the perfect woman for a man, that beef, butter,
Yeah.
bacon, and eggs.
One of my favorite things, I don't know if you tried this, but my daughter Emma perfected this. We have it all the time. We call it the Power Bowl, and it's exactly what you described. It's beef, butter, bacon, eggs, all in one bowl.
Oh,
So we'll cook up bacon in a big cast iron skillet. We'll put
oh, that's
eggs in it,
brilliant.
scramble it. We'll do beef in another one, and we'll get it nice and crusty with some butter on it. Mix it all together. It's one of the most delicious. Like it fills you up so good, and you can make a whole. We have this big cast iron skillet, so we'll make a big batch of it
Yeah,
and just eat
me
it for a
too.
couple days.
I was trying to do. My husband does one meal a day at lunch, and it's beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. But I can't do it because I get full so quickly.
Mm,
My satiety signals are so astute now
yeah.
that I can have maybe two eggs and a bite of steak. But then that is not enough fuel for my 5'8", 150-pound body to get me through the next day. So for some people listening, if you have to eat two meals still doing this, don't beat yourself up. We're all different.
Yes.
And though that sounds delicious, what you're talking about, there's so much satiety in that. I would have to split it up. I would have to have half
Right.
at lunch and half maybe at about 4 o'clock. So mine's kind of like it's kind of the one meal a day and a snack kind of probably philosophy for the intermittent fasting crowd. Because I know people are going, I thought you only did one meal or one meal and a snack. And I
Yeah.
kind of do. But sometimes if it's 2 meals, okay, it's okay. I mean, nobody's going to die. You're not going to
Yep.
get arrested. It's you do you. And I know you feel the same way.
Yeah, my daughter Emma, for example, when she started from vegan, she's like 90 pounds. She would eat me under the table. Because she didn't have the body fat I had to burn up. People always ask me, they're like, Kerry, I want to know exactly what you're eating. I'm like, why does it matter? What I eat now is different than what I eat a month from now, a month before.
Right.
My daughter Emma
That's
here
right.
is eating twice as much as me because she doesn't have the fat to burn. So, and
Yeah.
like I said, now that I lost most of my fat, I'm eating so much more, which I don't mind. It's kind of it's
Well,
kind of a
you're
headache.
so efficient too, your
Yeah.
body. And that's what I kind of explained to people. I said, I want you to think of your body as the highest end Lamborghini or whatever. I'm not a car person, but whatever. You would only put the finest fuel in there.
Yeah.
You would keep it in the garage. You would protect it from the elements. You would get it out in the sunlight because and think of your body the same way of putting the finest fuel, change the oil, all the things with the finest things. And then you start realizing that our bodies are treasures. God gave us treasures.
Yeah.
And they're in human form. Okay, we're out of time, but I'm going to send everybody in the show notes. We'll have all your social media links because you're YouTube famous, but your YouTube famous really, was that from the homesteading or was that from the carnivore?
Mostly carnivore. I've been doing
Okay.
homesteading for years, but mostly carnivore. But yeah, if you could shout out the documentary, I'd really appreciate that because
Okay.
that's my passion, is helping people through that.
Tell me what that is so that people just listening right now and they're not going to show notes, what that is.
Sure. It's www.carnivoredietmovie.com.
Okay.
And if you're just starting carnivore, we're still accepting people that want to show their story in the documentary. You can register on the site for free. It's crowdfunded, so if you want to donate, you can do that. We sell these Compassionate Carnivore t-shirts, and every penny I get from everything goes to the documentary. None of it goes in my pocket. So
I hope it goes to your pocket someday, because the Bible says a worker is worthy of his wages, and you're working very, very hard. And so we want you to keep the lights on there at the homestead. Hey, Kerry, you have a great message. Thank you for being here. Thanks for doing this today. I love everything. I love your passion. Thanks for listening to the Lisa Fisher Said podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe and download all the episodes and leave a review, won't you? The Lisa Fisher Said podcast is produced by ClantonCreative.com.